So let's jump into these two major questions. Can I help? Now, look, in the tweet example that we just showed, obviously, they've got a financial planner. They've stress tested their retirement plan. They're very comfortable, going to have plenty of resources. So the answer is a solid yes.
Yep.
However, I will tell you, I have dealt with the other side of this equation, where I can even remember a case where I had a windfall client. They had worked in education their whole life, but because where their family land was, a big windfall of money came their way, and it should have set them up forever.
Yep.
But I remember I had to do some tough love because the adult children, because she had multiple children, were picking her apart. I mean, to the point of buying bedroom furniture for their houses, to the point of when they were trying to go on the next vacation, they were asking their mother for all these things. And when you think about, hey, and I know what these adult children were thinking, hey, mom just came into all this money. She's set. She can help me out. But when you have 3 or 4 kids, and every adult child is asking mom to do these different behaviors, you can quickly see that, yes, mom came into a windfall, but it is breaking the system. And I had to put a stop to it to kind of make sure that she didn't sink herself. So, Bo, we talk about this all the time. What is something you can do when you're figuring out, can I help?
Yeah, one of the things, we always use this analogy. Whenever you get on an airplane, they always tell you, hey, make sure you put on your oxygen mask before you help those around you, before you even help your children. Well, your finances are no different. Before you can start helping others, before you can start being generous towards their financial struggles, you have to make sure that you are on a firm foundation. And unfortunately, when we look just at the numbers broadly, we know that right now, 14% of parents are moving back in with their kids. Now, obviously, some of this may be by choice, and that's wonderful.
And that's what we want it to be.
We want a
choice.
Family unit. If you want to live together, if you want to move back in, that's a magnificent thing. What I'm worried, though, is that a number of these 14% are not by choice, it's by necessity. It's by parents recognizing, holy cow, I am no longer able to provide for my well-being, and rather than being able to continue to help my kids, I now have to depend on my kids to provide shelter or resources for me. That's not the place you want to be in. And if you can assess early on whether or not you can help, hopefully you can avoid being in that dire situation later on.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts here. When you ask yourself, can I help? Don't go off just the emotional stuff. You've got to actually, let's put pen to paper. Let's look at the financial order of operations. Where are you at in this process?
Yep.
Are you ahead of the curve? Are you behind the curve? Are you right where you're supposed to be? Every one of those answers to those questions about your personal finances are going to help you figure out, can I actually help, or is it to my detriment to actually make this decision?
And if you are ahead, that's great. You should help. That's a wonderful thing. But if you are behind, you should be true to yourself, and you should recognize, man, I might not be in the position to be able to provide the help that I want to be able to provide to my kids. But even if that's the case, even if I cannot be the financial resource that my kids need right now, there are a plethora of non-financial ways that you can help your kids and that you can pour into their lives.
Well, this is something we talk about a lot. If you're talking about non-financial ways that you can help your adult children, and look, it doesn't have to just be adult children. If a lot of our audience is in their late 20s all the way up to the 40s, so your kids are probably still in the house. It's not too early to start this process. You've got to teach your children to be good with money. And one of the things we like to do is start thinking about how do you start those and model those behaviors well for your children. Bo, you do a great job when you're teaching your children. I think about the 3-part system that's very age appropriate, which is the give, save, spend. Can you talk about what you do with your girls and your son?
My kids are obviously young, so I can't talk to them about Roth IRAs and Roth conversion strategies and safe withdrawal rates. But I can talk to them about give, save, spend. Every time money comes into their possession, I want them to understand, okay, there's a right thing to do with these dollars and there's a wrong thing. First, we give, and then we save, and then we spend what's left over. That's a very age-appropriate thing for my kids. But then, as your kids age, you want the educational content that you're providing them to also change. So as they get into their teenage and young adult years, there are different topics you'll walk through them with.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, you've heard me share it many times, but I think it's very well worth repeating, is when your children get to working age, I'm talking about 15, 16 years of age, help them get their first job. And then once they start having money coming in, talk to them about what are appropriate behaviors where you need to be saving a portion of your income for the future. And better yet, why don't you take the role of what a lot of employers do? Why don't you prime the pump by actually doing dollar for dollar matches?
Yep.
I did this with my own daughter, and I've created a beast. I mean, every time she now comes into windfalls of money from work or other things, she will immediately come to me and say, hey, Dad, is that deal where you do dollar for dollar matching still working? If so, I want to give you some money to put in the investment account. While she's still in college, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. And I load her up because I really do think that behavior of understanding giving a little bit of today for that great, big, beautiful tomorrow is so valuable. I also really do make your kids go to work. You know, I think about, Bo, you worked in food service, you waited on tables. I worked in fast food and did the drive-through. It is amazing how much of my adult life and the skills I developed working in fast food still have tremendous dividends when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm dealing with coworkers. So make sure that you are letting your children have some chances to learn how to work and build and understand the power of letting your money work, but also a good work ethic.
And then even as your kids age and as they get into adulthood, there's even age-appropriate ways that you can do adult education. When your kids begin to have kids of their own, are you encouraging them to make sure they have estate documents in place? Do they have life insurance in place? Are they saving appropriately as you age and you prioritize your financial life? Hopefully so too will your kids begin to prioritize their financial life. And even though you want to be able to provide that education, you want to be able to speak to that, and you want to be able to lean into that for your kids, you want to give them room to fail. You don't want to do everything for them. You want to step back and let them learn lessons on their own, but you can be that sounding board there to say, hey, I noticed that you did this. I noticed that you made this choice. Did you think about it this way? Or had you approached it this way? Might that have been valuable? If they can learn those lessons early on, if they can fail small early in their life, hopefully that'll prevent them from failing big later on in their life.
Well, this accountability creates self-reliance, but it also creates them to kind of stand on their own two legs, have skin in the game, create some scarcity in their life, and I think this will serve them well.